Good morning, Britain. Since quite a few months, and certainly since allegations about you enhancing your CV, your personal CV, surfaced. That was in November, I think. As it is your first appearance on the programme since that story dropped, I think it's important that we ask you about it. We don't seek to embarrass you, but we'd just quickly like to go through it. It'll take me 20 seconds to summarise it. You told Stylist magazine that you'd worked at the Bank of England for a decade. In fact, it was only 6 years, and one of those years was at the London School of Economics doing a master's course, so that's 5 years and not a decade. And in biographies that you'd actually endorsed, it was stated that you worked as an economist at the Bank of England, the British Embassy in Washington, and latterly at the Halifax Bank of Scotland. But according to your former colleagues in your actual job,
we all know that Rachel Reeves hasn't exactly been honest, and let's be real, recent interviews haven't really held her accountable for lying on her CV. But that changed this morning. Chancellor was finally put on the spot about her misleading claims, and let's just say her response was nothing short of ridiculous. In today's video, we're going to break it all down, watching and reacting to this heated exchange while also covering the latest news from across the country. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join our fast-growing community.
Have a watch of this.
So this is your first appearance on Good Morning Britain since quite a few months, and certainly since allegations about you enhancing your CV, your personal CV, surfaced. That was in November, I think. As it is your first appearance on the programme since that story dropped, I think it's important that we ask you about it. We don't seek to embarrass you, but we'd just quickly like to go through it. It'll take me 20 seconds to summarise it. You told Stylist magazine that you'd worked at the Bank of England for a decade. In fact, it was only 6 years, and one of those years was at the London School of Economics doing a master's course, so that's 5 years and not a decade. And in biographies that you'd actually endorsed, it was stated that you worked as an economist at the Bank of England, the British Embassy in Washington, and latterly at the Halifax Bank of Scotland. But according to your former colleagues in your actual job, you actually worked in a support department at Scottish Bank, and you sort of helped out with admin and IT, and that's all earned you the nickname of Rachel from Accounts. Did you enhance your CV to make yourself look better qualified to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer if you won the election?
I'm really proud of the jobs that I did before I became a Member of Parliament. I worked at the Bank of England in the international area, working on investment and productivity. I worked as the second Economic Secretary at the British Embassy in Washington. I've done an undergraduate degree in PPE, a master's from the London School of Economics in economics, and then I worked in the private sector where I worked for Halifax Bank of Scotland, working in Halifax in West Yorkshire and around the country, heading up teams both in the mortgages area and in the retail operations.
Why did you say that you'd worked at the Bank of England for a decade when in fact it was, well, it wasn't even 6 years, it was 5? I mean, that's exaggeration, isn't it?
Well, I worked at the Bank of England for 6 years, between 2000 and 2006. I was employed by the Bank of England, including I spent just over a year at the British Embassy working in the economics section there, supporting the government and the bank.
Why did you say it was a decade?
Well, I think you're taking... it's one interview. I worked at the Bank of England for 6 years. I worked for then at Halifax Bank of Scotland, I think, for 3 years after that. I became an MP when I was 31. But I think in the end, people want to judge me on the job that I'm doing today as Chancellor of the Exchequer. I'm qualified to do this job, but in the end, people are going to judge me. Am I growing the economy? Am I improving their living standards? And I'm determined to do just that.
This is how people reacted. This user said. She goes on to say people will judge her on the job she's doing now. Economic growth has crashed since she became Chancellor, so Labour are failing. And he said, yep, we're judging you by the job you're doing, and frankly, my dear Rachel, you're ducking crap, being polite. This user said, honesty is always the best policy, especially on a CV. Lying can lead to trouble down the line. It's unfortunate that Rachel from Accounts felt the need to embellish her credentials. Hopefully she will learn from this experience and be more truthful in the future. Integrity matters, and it's essential to maintain trust in the workplace. Let's hope Rachel takes this as an opportunity to grow and become a better version of herself. Adrian said, good job. She was in Driffield for that interview, as I start drifting off when listening to her speak. What do you think about today's topics? Let me know in the comments. In other news, a 12-year-old girl suffered a terrifying attack by an XL bully dog in Nant y Mole, South Wales. The incident took place on October 7th in the early evening when the dog, named Rocco, ran at full speed towards her, jumping on her back and latching onto her arm. Witnesses described hearing shouting just moments before the attack. Prosecutor Lisa Lewis told Newport Crown Court that the girl's father bravely fought off the dog after it had bitten a chunk from her arm, exposing bone and tendons. Shockingly, the dog's owner, Justin Allison, 38, showed little urgency in helping. Witnesses say he didn't seem concerned as the young girl screamed for help in the middle of the road. On Wednesday, Allison was sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to several charges. The unemployed father of 2 admitted to owning a banned breed without a license and failing to control a dangerous dog in public. Police later found a butterfly knife in his bedroom, adding another charge of possessing an offensive weapon. Court heard that Allison, despite being on benefits for years, bought Rocco as a puppy for £1,000. The dog, which was unregistered with police, was later seized and humanely destroyed. As part of his sentencing, Allison has been banned from owning dogs for 10 years. In a heartbreaking victim impact statement, the girl described the attack as a bad dream and feared she might lose the use of her arm. She was housebound for weeks, unable to sleep in her own bed, and missed school for 6 weeks, feeling cut off from her friends. Once an active child involved in karate, rugby, gymnastics, and athletics, she can no longer participate in sports due to the attack's lasting impact. She now struggles with anxiety, rarely leaves the house, and panics when she sees stray dogs. Her family even gave up their own pet dog as they no longer felt safe. Sentencing Justin Allison, Judge Daniel Williams criticized his reckless disregard for public safety, telling him, "You put your own image and swagger above the safety of others." Detective Chief Inspector Virginia Davies of Gwent Police stated, "Allison failed to control his dog, resulting in a vicious attack that left a young girl with serious injuries. This case should remind all dog owners of their responsibility to keep their pets under control at all times." In other news, King Charles continues to impress with his vast knowledge of Britain's regions. At a recent Buckingham Palace reception, 270 MPs and 45 peers were welcomed by the King and Queen Camilla. Those newly elected were honored alongside senior politicians such as Sir Keir Starmer, Kami Baddock, and former Prime Minister Theresa May. MPs praised the King's deep understanding of different areas across the UK. Paul Waugh, Labour MP for Rochdale, described him as being impeccably polite and incredibly knowledgeable about every constituency. During the reception, the King laughed when asked if he shopped at the Co-op, which originated in Rochdale. Meanwhile, Ealing Southall MP Deirdre Costigan said the King was well aware that her area is often called Little India due to its large Sikh community. What are your thoughts on today's stories? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates.